Today, I want to talk about the massive leak circulating online suggesting that we now know the tech specs for the PlayStation 5 Pro, which is widely expected to launch later this year towards the holiday season 2024. Now, you might stop and think, the PS5 just came out, how are we already getting a Pro? But if you're like me, I just didn't realize how much time had passed since these consoles launched because they came out in November of 2020 and we are now in 2024. And if you look at Sony's history with releasing Pro model consoles being for the PS4, they actually launched that console just 3 years after the launch of the PlayStation 4, as the original launch date for the PS4 was November 15th, 2013, and the launch date for the PS4 Pro was November 10th, 2016. So just by those own standards, it's already time for Sony to talk about their Pro level hardware, and that's where the conversation gets a little bit more exciting because it sounds like this is probably a larger leap forward in technical capabilities than we've seen so far, and I would still argue that no developer has probably come close to really fully optimizing the PS5 that we have today, but somehow a lot of the games that are coming out now tend to run pretty rough unless you put them in performance mode. It's a pretty common thing to have to legitimately choose between something like 1440p or 4K resolution with a solid 30 frames per second, and not always solid by the way, or you have to go down to performance mode and you're looking at a 1080p or a dynamic resolution with something closer to that of 60 frames per second. So whether or not the devs just don't know the ins and outs on how to take advantage of all of the console technology, or if it's really just already dated hardware and that promise of 4K 60 gameplay on this generation of consoles just wasn't true, that remains to be seen. But the big credible article that has recently been posted online as of March 15th comes to us from Insider Gaming, which says, what are the PlayStation 5 Pro specs? The PlayStation 5 Pro is, according to Insider Gaming sources, set to be released at the end of the year. It's a powerhouse of a console that's going to push the envelope further than ever before, taking what we know and twisting it into something terrifyingly and insanely impressive. It's all well and good talking about it now in extravagant terms, but what are the PlayStation 5 Pro specs? The PlayStation 5 Pro is set to change the landscape for gaming hardware at least until the next generation surfaces. On paper, it's an incredible machine, and if it launches when it's intended, it could be sitting at the top of everyone's Christmas list all over the world. The PlayStation 5 Pro specs are tantalizing at first blush, but deep dive reveals that they're going to take the base PS5 and wipe the floor with it. So what are the PS5 Pro specs? In our recent article on the topic, we confirmed that leaked specifications for the PS5 Pro were legitimate, but here's the breakdown in full so you know what you're going to be pre-ordering soon. Rendering 45% faster than PS5, 2 to 3 times ray tracing, 4 times in some cases, 33.5 teraflops, PSSR, PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution upscaling/anti-aliasing solution, support for resolution up to 8K is planned for future SDK version, custom machine learning architecture, AI accelerator supporting 300 TOPS of 8-bit computation, 64 teraflops of 16-bit floating point. It was also confirmed recently that dev kits have been shared with first-party studios as far back as September 2023, and by spring 2024, the final product will be available exclusively for those making games for this tech titan of a console. So to say that this is potentially a significant jump is an understatement. If these are true specs like Insider Gaming is staking their reputation on, and they are a credible outlet that has leaked many things ahead of their official announcement, such as the PlayStation Portal before we knew that was a thing, and when everybody was talking about it looks like Sony cut a DualSense controller in half and glued it to an 8-inch tablet, nobody really believed that, or at least it seemed kind of weird for Sony to potentially do that with a remote play device. Well, now we know the PS Portal is a thing. So assuming that we are to believe these tech specs, this is going to be a massive leap forward in terms of the console's overall capabilities. There's even some posts online comparing this raw power to something of a 4070 or 4080 NVIDIA graphics card performance, but at a fraction of the price, because that graphics card alone would cost you more than likely this whole console will launch at. Now, we know console manufacturers, being Sony and Microsoft, historically sell their consoles at a loss and they make their money back on software. That said, if you have a large performance boost plus all of the AI enhancements that's going to be baked into this thing, it could really be a game changer, and it could let people get up to performance mode in games turning into 8K 30 frames per second. And I don't know who wants to run games at 8K, but I'm sure there's people out there that want to do it. And maybe 4K 60 is a realistic possibility for standard games that are coming out for the second half of the console's generation, and hopefully devs will provide plenty of updates for existing games that will be able to go back and take advantage of this additional hardware. But I really think the biggest thing that could give this console an edge over others in terms of visual performance might have to do with that AI upscaling they have baked in and a dedicated chipset that's designed entirely to support AI processes. We know of technologies like DLSS from NVIDIA and AMD FSR Super Resolution. These things are legitimately like developers being able to use cheat codes to get better game performance and frame rate and resolution, because you can run the game natively at a lower resolution. You can use AI to upscale it, and hence the frame rate can be much higher and that resolution can be upscaled much higher with less actual raw computing power needed to do said tasks. The big outstanding point that we don't know about PS5 Pro and that hasn't really been leaked or reported upon from any major outlet is the price point. And considering that Sony is selling the digital only PlayStation 5 right now for $450 with the slim model and the disc drive version at $500, I do not think it's out of the realm of possibility for this to at least be a $600 device full retail. This is one of these strange console generations where instead of seeing price decreases, we've actually seen increases at just about every major market around the world outside of the US. And even Sony and Microsoft have essentially done it in their own way, just kind of packing in a game but selling it for $550 for the disc model version PS5. But now with the slim models, you can of course just find them standalone for $500 and $450 respectively. And then there's also the question on whether or not PS5 Pro for a $600 price point actually includes a disc drive. It very well may not, and that would be a big turnoff for me, because while I don't feel like I right at this moment need an upgrade for my PS5, if the price point's right and it is a large enough technical leap, I might just consider getting one. But I primarily buy things physically, and on the PS5 my entire library is physical games, and if you're telling me I can't play any of those on the new digital only PS5 Pro, that would be a big problem, and I think a lot of gamers are like that. So I don't think Sony will want to cut off their user base and only sell a digital model of this PS5 Pro, but it might be $600 for a digital only model, and the detachable disc drive would be sold separately for something like an extra $80 or $100, which would bump you closer to $700. And then you have to really stop and ask yourself what you're doing, because you are getting into serious cash for most consumers at that point in time, albeit if this does have the performance of something like 4070 or 4080, it might still be worth it in many consumers' heads just due to the prices of those graphics cards. So that's the latest info on all things PS5 Pro. Let me know in the comments down below if you're currently a PlayStation 5 owner. Do you have your eyes on this console at all, especially considering that it's likely going to be launched at a $600 plus price point? Do you think that all of the tech specs that are revealed to us through this leak are exciting, and would it be something that justifies a purchase for you? And how do you think Sony will navigate the disc drive situation on this Pro revision? Does it come with it in the box and that's the only way to buy it? Does it not come with it and it's detachable like the PS5 Slim models? And do they even sell a disc drive version all in one box, or do you have to go buy it separately as an accessory? Because I can definitely see them doing that. But regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch the video on screen next if you haven't already. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.